Hey guys, Rob Lally here. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about how to be better at sales, at persuasion, and negotiation as well when you are dealing with potential clients and dealing with, strategy sessions and discovery calls and sales calls as well. And the reason why I want to talk to you about this today is because when I speak to a lot of clients and, I start diagnosing the problems and really kind of getting in the weeds of it, I often find that if a person is trying to create a business, they are using the same sales strategy with every single person. They are trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what you should be doing in this video and why the blanket approach doesn't really work. And to illustrate this point, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about history about a guy named Casanova. Now, if you haven't heard of Casanova before, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't heard of him, he was this dude who was very popular with the women. He was very good with women. He was very good at building relationships, and he was like infamous in his time for basically having lots and lots of separate partners and just kind of being a bit of a womanizer, right? And why am I bringing this up? The reason why is because Casanova wasn't only great with the opposite sex, right? He was actually a really, really good businessman and a really good persuader as well. He was very persuasive in what he did. He understood the social dynamics that were at play around people, right? And to put this into perspective, he actually, don't quote me on the specific details here, but he got thrown into prison a few times, I remember, and he actually managed to get out of prison and escape one time by persuading the prison guard to let him go, right? So I've massively oversimplified that, but that's essentially what he did. Now think of like how good your social skills need to be and persuasion skills you need to be to actually pull that off, right? Pretty damn good. And now if we take a little bit of a look of his mindset, I'm just going to read this quote out to you that he actually said. He said, "I saw that to accomplish anything, I must bring all my physical and moral faculties in play, make the acquaintance of the great and the powerful, exercise strict self-control and play the chameleon." So what does that mean there? Let's break this down. He said that he needs to bring his physical and moral faculties in play. He needs to really focus on the task at hand. He needs to make the acquaintance of the great and the powerful. So he needs to know the right people. He needs to exercise strict self-control over himself and over how he presents himself and over how he talks and appears to other people, right? And this is the most important part, play the chameleon. Now, the thing is about Casanova is he actually was very, very, very good at blending into crowds, which is why he had access to so many different like friend groups and contact groups as well. He was very, very good at blending in. And these are some of the strategies you should be using on your sales calls as well. Now, when I say be a chameleon and blend in a little bit, I don't mean in an inauthentic way. I don't mean start saying things about yourself that just aren't true. But what you should be doing is reading the other person's energy on the phone and reading what type of person are they. Are they maybe a direct person? Are they maybe an indirect person, a sensitive person, an emotional person, an action taker, a person who's quite passive, right? These are very, very different types of personalities. And if you go into your strategy session or sales call or discovery call with them, and you start speaking to them as you speak to every single person on the phone call, you will be successful in getting the sale from them a certain proportion of the time. However, if you would have actually spoken to them in a way that they would like to be spoken to, you would be much more successful. So to give you a good example of this, rather than just talking in sort of theory here, I book a lot of calls through LinkedIn. That's what I base my business on. I teach other business owners to do that. And I speak to a range of people. And a good example, in the last 3 months, I've spoken to 2 different sorts of people. One, I've spoken to quite a spiritual person who is offering like well-being services, spiritual well-being, life coaching services to business owners. and they were interested in my services, and another person who was interested in my services was like a high-powered CEO of a multi-million-dollar company who was like, he wanted to know my lead generation service and like the techniques and things too, so he could give the approach to his whole company. And the CEO was a big action taker. He came on the call, he was like, Rob, this is what I want. This is what I want from you. How can we make this happen, right? He was a no BS type of guy, right? And then if we look at the flip side of the spectrum, the well-being, the life coach, spiritual coach, right? She was like very about emotions, very about like feeling. She wasn't really revenue focused. She was more like wanting to help people and help people change their lives, right? And so when I talk to these people, I don't want to be bringing the emotions and the feely sort of side to the conversation with the CEO, right? I don't want to sit there with the CEO and be like, well, you know, I truly believe that you can be making people happy, right? It wouldn't resonate with him. It just wouldn't fly with him. Instead, with the CEO, I would be talking about, and I did talk about, things like revenue growth, 3-year goals. If you do this, this, and this is what you can expect. Concrete numbers, figures I was talking about with him, money goals, like financial goals, actual concrete numbers and things. Whereas when I was talking to the spiritual coach, I was like, you know, I was positioning my service as this is a service which will help you impact more people, because I know that's what's important to them. So it's my same service I'm giving to either of them, and this is the key point here. It's the same service I'm giving to either of them, except I'm delivering it in a language they can understand, right? It's very, very, very important. If you go back and look at like any sort of relationships you've had, I'm not just talking like romantic relationships, I'm talking like friend relationships as well, or maybe like family relationships. And you think about a person which you just can never connect with. I've had people like that in my life, you know, for some reason, like we'll start talking and we're just not on the same wavelength. We just can't connect it. You kind of feel like it's not like a friendly vibe, it feels a bit awkward. If you actually go back and analyze the conversation, you might find that you are two very different people who value different things. And when you say something, like I've even had it before where I've like agreed with the person on something, but it just still hasn't resonated. And it's maybe because I'm agreeing in my language, right? And I'm thinking they'll understand this, and they're not understanding it because I'm more of a logical, straightforward guy who deals with numbers and things like this. But if they're a very emotional person, then it's harder for me to connect with them right off the bat because it's not natural for me. So like if I have a person like that, I struggle to connect with them. But in sales and in persuasion and in business as well, it's your job to communicate at the level that these guys would understand, right? And if you're trying to sell your service, make sure that on your notepad, you know, while you're making notes of the person's situation and trying to get an understanding to see if you can if it actually fits what you do for them, because you're being authentic, right? Make sure that you also make a note of what type of first impressions of this person, like what type of personality are they? Are they direct? Are they concerned about numbers and figures? Are they wanting to just take a lot of action, right? Do they need things mapped out to them like 1 + 1 = 2, right? Or maybe they more go with the flow. Maybe they're more like an emotional person. Maybe they do what they feel like and what feels good and things like that. Because you need to approach those angles from two very separate ways. One, you'd be talking about impact. You'd be talking about helping lots of people or positioning your service so it helps them. Another person, you'd be very talking about like revenue, figures, numbers, do this and this, and it equals that. Very much like that, very logical approach. Now, obviously with sales and persuasion, you can't always 100% read a person. Sometimes when a person comes on the phone, you need to make them relaxed as well, because they might be putting up this front that actually isn't what really represents them deep down. So it's also your job as well to be asking the right questions, to be digging down that path to make sure you're actually eliciting a true character out of them and getting a great understanding of what it is they do. This is something which has really helped me with coming into sales and things. And this is something I really needed to understand myself, because I was always like a very logical guy. So when I met like emotional people, it was tough for me to sell them. I just couldn't resonate with it, right? So if there's something to take away from your business, make sure you are lining up your words and speaking in your client's language, making sure you're being very authentic with it as well, because people will smell when you're not being authentic with it, right? People will smell like, this dude isn't trying to come down to my level to actually understand me. They're actually coming down to my level to try and pitch me on their products, which is not cool, right? You need to be very authentic with what you do. And also, like, if you're going to be a chameleon, make sure you're reading the room right, reading the person right, reading everything about them right, which takes time and practice, but you'll get there. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.